The Zimbabwean sun, usually a comforting blanket, felt like a harsh spotlight on Tendai's exposed heart. He watched, numb, as Chennai's silhouette disappeared into the gleaming tinted windows of a luxury SUV, a vehicle far too opulent for their modest suburban street in Avondale. The driver, a man Tendai vaguely recognized as Mr. Sibanda, a notoriously wealthy and notoriously married real estate mogul, offered Chennai a possessive smile that made Tendai's stomach churn. Just last week, Chennai had sworn her undying love, her eyes reflecting the same golden hues of the setting sun they now watched separately. Now, a cold, hard knot of betrayal tightened in Tendai's chest. He picked up a fallen jacaranda blossom, its vibrant purple, a stark contrast to the gray ash of his dreams. He crushed it in his palm, the bitterness of familiar taste. The SUV, carrying his future and his heartbreak, sped off, leaving only a trail of dust and shattered promises. The world, once vibrant, now seemed muted, a black and white film playing out his worst nightmare. He stood there, a statue of sorrow, until the last whisper of the engine faded into the bustling Harare evening. Tendai spent the next few weeks in a haze of despair, the vibrant city of Harare a blur around him. Friends tried to console him, offering well-meaning advice and sympathetic glances, but their words were hollow echoes in his grief-stricken mind. He sought Chennai occasionally, always in the passenger seat of Sibanda's car, her laughter echoing in the opulent restaurants they frequented, her smile, once exclusively his, now lavished upon another. Each sighting was a fresh stab to his already wounded heart, fueling a quiet, dangerous spark of malice within him. He started observing Sibanda, learning his routines, his habits, the subtle power plays he enacted in business meetings he inadvertently overheard. He noticed the casual ways Sibanda discarded people once they had served their purpose, a cold ruthlessness that sent a shiver down Tendai's spine. A seed of an idea, dark and unsettling, began to germinate in his mind, watered by his pain and the desire for something, anything, to dull the ache of loss. Tendai, a talented but often overlooked graphic designer, began to use his skills in a new, more insidious way. He started subtly collecting information, a casual remark from a mutual acquaintance, a snippet of conversation overheard at the local market, all adding to his growing, disturbing portrait of Mr. Sibanda. He learned of Sibanda's lavish lifestyle, his numerous properties, and the whispers of how he acquired them, always teetering on the edge of legality, sometimes crossing it entirely. He also learned of Mrs. Sibanda, a woman often seen at charity events, her face a mask of polite indifference, a subtle sadness in her eyes. Tendai began to craft a narrative, not with words, but with whispers and carefully placed suggestions. He circulated a few anonymous, yet tantalizing hints about Mr. Sibanda's less than ethical business dealings, never directly accusing, but always planting seeds of doubt. The whispers, like a dry season wind, began to spread through Harare's elite circles, subtly eroding Sibanda's carefully constructed reputation. The subtle campaign of insinuation began to bear fruit. Tendai watched from a distance as cracks appeared in Sibanda's polished facade. A lucrative deal unexpectedly fell through. A major investor pulled out, citing unforeseen complications. Mr. Sibanda, usually unflappable, was seen openly arguing on his phone, his face a mask of frustrated fury. Chennai, too, seemed less radiant, her laughter less frequent, a shadow of worry now clouding her eyes. The opulent gifts she once flaunted were now worn with a hint of desperation, as if clinging to a rapidly fading dream. Tendai even saw her once, alone at a coffee shop, scrolling through her phone with a dejected expression. He knew instinctively that the glittering veneer of her new life was beginning to chip away, revealing the less than glamorous reality beneath. The whispers, Tendai realized, were doing their job, not just affecting Sabanda's business, but slowly, meticulously, unraveling the very fabric of Chennai's newfound happiness. The turning point came at a high-profile gala, an event Tendai managed to attend through a cleverly acquired press pass. He observed Chennai and Sabanda, their usual public display of affection, now strained, punctuated by forced smiles and tense whispers. Then, Tendai saw something truly shocking. Mr. Sabanda, emboldened by champagne and a misplaced sense of security, was overtly flirting with another woman, a younger, strikingly beautiful socialite, right under Chennai's nose. Chennai, her face paling, tried to maintain her composure, but Tendai saw the flicker of heartbreak in her eyes, a mirror of the pain he himself had endured. He watched as she eventually retreated to a quiet corner, her shoulders slumped in defeat. The grand affair, meant to showcase Sabanda's power, was instead becoming a public unraveling of his deceit. Tendai felt a cold satisfaction, a strange blend of vindication and pity. The serpent, he thought, was beginning to devour itself. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of escalating drama. The whispers about Sabanda intensified, culminating in a devastating exposé in a local business tabloid, not directly accusing him of anything illegal, but painting a picture of a man whose success was built on shaky, unethical foundations. The article, cleverly written to avoid libel, hinted at numerous financial irregularities and questionable land deals. Simultaneously, Tendai made sure that a few well-placed anonymous tips about Sabanda's indiscretions reached Mrs. Sabanda. The culmination of these events led to a spectacular public confrontation between Mr. and Mrs. Sabanda at a charity auction, a scene witnessed by half of Harare's elite. The marriage, a facade for years, finally shattered. In the fallout, Mr. Sabanda, facing mounting pressure from all sides, needed a scapegoat. And who better than the woman who had ostensibly caused his downfall? Tanai, his former mistress, was suddenly expendable. Tanai found herself abandoned, not just by Sabanda, but by the shallow society she had desperately tried to impress. Her credit cards were suddenly declined, the luxury apartment she had been living in was repossessed, and her calls to Sabanda went unanswered. She was ostracized, whispered about, and scorned. Her former friends, eager to distance themselves from the scandal, vanished. Desperate, with nowhere else to turn, she found herself knocking on Tendai's door. His small but meticulously kept home in Avondale seemed a world away from the gilded cages she had inhabited. She stood on his doorstep, disheveled, tear-streaked, and utterly broken, a stark contrast to the radiant woman she had left him just months before. Her eyes, once filled with ambition, now held a raw, pleading vulnerability. She begged for his forgiveness, for his understanding, for any shred of help he could offer. Tendai looked at her, a strange mix of emotions swirling within him. Tendai invited Chennai in, not with warmth, but with a quiet, unsettling calm. He listened to her tearful apologies, her desperate pleas, and her bitter recounting of Sabanda's callous betrayal. When she was finished, Tendai looked at her, a knowing glint in his eyes. "You left me for a married man," he said softly, his voice devoid of anger. "And what happened to you? It shocked you, didn't it?" Chennai stared at him, bewildered, as Tendai slowly began to reveal the intricate web he had spun, the carefully placed whispers, the anonymous tips, the subtle manipulations that led to her dramatic downfall. He explained how he had orchestrated the exposure of Sabanda's affairs, how he had ensured Mrs. Sabanda would discover the truth, and how he had precisely timed the tabloid exposé. Shania's face drained of color as the pieces clicked into place. The shock wasn't just at Sabanda's betrayal, but at the realization that Tendai, the quiet, heartbroken man she had left behind, was the architect of her spectacular ruin. He had achieved his goal. She was utterly, truly shocked.